Does it make a difference whether you believe your student to be capable or not so capable in your classroom? A famous piece of research published in 1968 by Robert Rosenthal and Lenore Jacobson discussed, does it make a difference when teachers expect their students to perform highly or not so? Now, this is a piece of research I first discovered professionally in 2010, so 40-ish years after. And I want to just share a piece of research that I've discovered, which talks about the Pygmalion Effect 60 years later. And what the research essentially did was, and I've summarized it in this blog post for you here, Teacher Expectations Shape Outcomes. It summarizes this original research. And it's something I talk about on my teacher training travels quite a lot, especially if you look at a piece of data. And I might say to you, or Ross is really naughty in my classroom, he might not behave well for you, and this starts to influence your bias and expectations and things like that. And what we can learn from this research is how much your expectations or beliefs of a student's potential can hinder or help exceed your expected outcomes of that young person. Essentially, the study, what it did was it took students, picked their names out of a hat, and essentially showed four things. And in the bottom of the video, in the blog post here, you see this video which summarizes it much better than I ever could. You'll find that the teachers who believe their students to be capable, they didn't know that they were told that they were capable, were nicer to their students, taught them more material, asked them more challenging questions, and didn't accept a low quality response. Now, if we reverse this and think, what if you have Ross in your classroom? He's really naughty. You'll dread that lesson every time you teach him. How does it do the opposite? So the research concludes that if you think Ross isn't capable, then you're not going to give him detailed feedback because you think it's not worth it. You don't set a nice climate. So you're not essentially nice to him as you are the other students. You don't teach Ross more material because it's not worth it. And you don't push him for detailed answers because you think, again, the effort is not worth it either. So essentially, this is what the research is. Now, I'm confident there are a lot of teachers out there who've not heard of Pygmalion in the classroom, which is the research paper. Here's the original research. You can see it's a very, very short paper, easy to digest. And you can read that in 5 minutes. I've got a blog here for you. You can read in 3. Okay, but again, and you've got the 5-minute video. So there's plenty of stuff here. This is a really good, important piece of research when we look at student outcomes, student data, and things like that. So I encourage you to look at it. My final point, there's another piece of research which was published in 2016, and this paper looks at the Pygmalion Effect 60 years later. Okay, now this paper is 17 pages long. I have looked at it, but you're lucky because I've summarized it in this blog for you here, the Pygmalion Effect in Education 60 years later. And what you can find in this blog post is, again, the question, does teacher expectations unintentionally shape student success? And I guess without realizing it, what impact does it have on climate, feedback, input, and output, and why it matters, and how we can be conscious of our bias and things like that. But this paper here, if I just put it back on the screen here, essentially teacher expectancy, the effect. So when it's viewed as an example of kind of different processes, it represents a powerful yet understudied mechanism for influencing student outcomes. So the power of teacher expectations does make a big difference 60 years ago and 60 years later today on your student outcomes. So in practical terms, what this means for teachers is what you believe about your students can quietly shape what happens in the classroom. It's a reminder that the way teachers think is just as powerful as what they do. And I hope you find that food for thought when you're looking at data back in your school classrooms. Other than that, thanks for watching.